This is the Neewer HB80B. It's a bicolor LED video light. It can go up to 80 watts, although that's boost mode. At 45 watts, it's silent mode where it doesn't turn on the fan. Now this guy has a 72 watt-hour battery. So this was sent to me to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $160. They haven't paid me for this review, and my opinions remain my own. So in the box we have this carry storage bag, which is protected by a plastic bag. So this guy has a folding handle here, soft grip handle. It's not very heavy, so you really don't need the soft grip handle, but that's a nice touch. We get a lot of paperwork in the lid here. There's an app that can control it, there's package contents, and then the little instruction manual poster here. So this is a USB-C power delivery charge or powered light, and it comes with a relatively long, relatively thick USB-C to C powered cable here. So this is the stock reflector that comes with it, right there. And this is the main light itself. So this is a protective storage cover, and it has a caution here. You know, this is not an accessory. It's not some type of a lighting shield or anything. It says, hey, remove this cover before you use it. And so push the button to release that. All right, so you have the light, COB LEDs, bicolor, HB80B there. On the back we have the cooling fan. There's a display up here which has a little cover over it. I'm already getting fingerprints on this metallic surface here. And we have the power button, menu, mode lock, fan, and then an up, down, and push to click to select type button here. And it also has this guy here which can do 2.4 gigahertz or this infinity support thing. And that's the Type-C power in. On the bottom we have a 1/4x20 mount point. So included also is a little tabletop tripod, 1/4x20 mount. Metal, has some 1/4x20 holes in it as well. It's a little nicer than many of these tabletop tripods I've seen. Here we have a nice mount for attaching to more standard light posts. This guy here can, twist in different positions, and then this will screw into the bottom of the light. I believe that's the sub-contents here, other than a few silica gel packets. Alright, so to give you an idea of this light at night, I'm going to start turning it up here. Alright, so that's 100% intensity at night. I take the light away, put it back up. It's a pretty good light. So I don't think you're going to have any real complaints about how much light this guy puts out. Now here's a color temperature change. It's at 65K right now. I dropped down to 27K right there. Go back up to 65. So on the battery indicator, there appear to be kind of 4 light levels. There's the bottom, up, and top full. So I'll just make the assumption it's kind of a 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. And hopefully when it's fully charged, the thing will be fully green with no animation. That's my assumption of what the little battery indicator means, and I think that's an indication of the battery charge level. I would have preferred a percentage amount, but 4 bars is kind of okay. I would have preferred 4 bars over a circle with ambiguous bars, but yeah, I guess once you figure it out, it's fine. Now you've probably already noticed that this reflector and light have this kind of industry standard Bowens mount here. So you put something in, click, locks, you want to get out, you push the button, pops back out. That was used here for this protective cover as well, but you're not supposed to turn the light on with that guy. I'm going to push and hold. Now we have this guy here, and it has a picture, and there we go. So we can adjust the intensity. So 0 intensity is effectively off. We're up to 70 some. All right, so there's 100% intensity. I can also convert my color temperature here, so there's 27K up to 65K. Now they also have some fancy modes where it will do effects like, something that looks kind of like fire. I think it has something where it will do responding to music. So here it's detecting the beat. So that answers the question of what the microphone is for. In this mode, it will basically beat with the beat. So menu-wise, it has 3 main modes. There's this mode, which is just intensity and color temperature. This mode here is the special effects, so you can have, different special effects happening. And then this mode here is intensity off on that side, and when you change the color temperature, it's done by type of light. There's sunlight, and there's, a house with sun over it, and kind of a sunset, and there's, different styles of lighting with different icons, and that changes the color temperature for you. So personally, I prefer just to change the color temperature based on, how many Kelvin. But if you like the presets, you can do that as well. Now there's also a rudimentary menu here. You can change which channel this light is on for the app control. You can also change this guy, which I believe is kind of the response curve for the intensity setting. There's a version of the firmware. Right, so if you want the full manual, you'll have to go to the website and download the full manual. This is kind of just a quick start guide with different languages and some settings here. So this will tell you the very basics, but to get the full manual, you'll have to go to the website. All right, if you want to get the app, you just scan the QR code. They have one for Android, one for iOS. All right, this is the Neewer app by the Neewer team. So this app has 100,000 plus downloads and a 2-star rating with 523 reviews. Now if you're looking for it with the phone app, make sure this guy's up to their Infinity support as opposed to down for 2.4G. Alright, we need to enable Bluetooth permissions so that it can discover the device. Alright, the app has found the light and it's adding the device. And I can turn the device on and off, and can change the brightness and the color temperature or adjust the curves. So we have curve adjustment, we have linear, exponential, logarithmic, or sigmoid. Although personally I think I'll probably just be using the brightness and color temperature sliders. We can say, hey, make this look like a modeling lamp, a studio lamp, tungsten bulb, warm white halogen lamp, sunlight, and so forth. We can also match a source, and they basically have, if we turn on the camera, we can match a source from the camera. So they have various special effects like lightning, paparazzi, defective bulb, explosion, and so forth. And you can change the sparks and the speed to make it more impressive looking. Realistically, I think the main use of the remote here is just changing the brightness and color temperature remotely. Now there is a red dot. I suspect it may need a firmware update. It says version 1.2.3 with a red dot. It says, hey, we have a version 1.2.4. We're going to do the firmware update. The app is downloading the thing. It's uploading it to the light here. The light says OTA, probably for over-the-air update. It's about 10% done, so it'll take a little bit of time to update, but it doesn't look like it's an unreasonable amount of time. Alright, it says update successful, please restart the device manually, confirm. And I heard the fan turn on. That's the first time I've ever heard the fan turn on using it so far. So I'm going to push the power button. So when you push the power button, it says, hey, to prevent this from accidentally getting turned on in the bag, you have to roll this up, and that's your second confirmation. All right, so now we have the firmware updated. If I go into the menu, it says version 1.24. I don't see a lot of other changes in the menu with that. I also have not found an easy way just to turn the light on and off without turning the entire unit on and off. You can always rotate the intensity down to 0, but that might take a lot of rotating down. So the phone app makes it faster to change the intensity. But we have the firmware updated. So the built-in reflector is just slightly taller than the base, so as you pull it over the edge of the table there, it tilts up just slightly. You know, this guy's meant to be on a stand, so you're not going to be just like setting it on a table, so that's not really a big deal, but just something to keep in mind. So I'm really not quite sure why they included this little tabletop stand, because this bracket here won't screw into a 1/4x20, so you can't use this bracket with the tabletop stand. And so realistically, if you put this thing on a table, it's just facing straight forward. You can rotate, but you can't really aim up and down. So if you're going to be using it with this, you might need a little pan head or a tilt head there to really make it useful, because this guy will work with a standard lighting post, but it doesn't work with like a 1/4x20 or 3/8 socket. I think this guy might work better as a handle if you're doing a handheld lighting setup. So this is the beam pattern with the built-in reflector. If I take that reflector off, it gets to be a little bit more of a flat light. So here is adding the reflector on. It's more of a spotlight. All right, so in the back here in the fan mode, if I push it down to less fan blades, the light gets dimmer. If I push it up to more fan blades, the light gets stronger. Now, the power is at 65 here. I'm going to go down to 4 fan blades. The power is at 45. I do not know how to make that go up to 80 watts, because it's supposed to be an 80 watt light. All right, reading the manual, I figured out why I can't get to 80 watts. From the battery, it can either do 45 watts in silent mode or normal mode at 65 watts. But to get to booster mode for the full 80 watt light, you need to be plugged into a power delivery 100 watt charger. So the battery can do 45 watts or 65 watts, but not 80 watts. So basically it's a 65 watt mobile light or an 80 watt studio light when it's plugged in. And it says it can charge and operate at the same time. Alright, so I plugged this guy in just to a cell phone charger, and it's giving me a battery charging icon. It has no battery percentage, it just says, hey, I'm charging. Plug this into a 100 watt power delivery charger. The last cable I think was max 65 watts. The icon looks the same, it's charging. So I've plugged this guy into just a USB A to C cable, 5 volts, it's drawing like 1.8 amps, 8.5 watts. It's giving me a charging icon, but it does not have the lightning bolt. So while turned off, it will charge from just a generic USB-C cable, not even without any power delivery. I'm not thinking it's charging super fast, but it will charge through just a generic, any 5-volt USB-C plug. All right, plugged into a 100-watt USB-C power delivery charger. This guy's negotiated up to 20-volt level. It's charging at 60 watts here, like 58 watts coming in. And I don't know what percentage the battery's at. As I say, it doesn't have any real percentage indicator here, so I don't know if it's at 50% or 90% from the factory. But it looks like it's charging at about 3 amps at 60 watts. I believe it will use more if I turn the light on to full power boost mode, so I'm going to try that. Right, I have the light to full power boost mode, and you can see that fan has a whole bunch of blades, and it's drawing 89 watts right now, which you can't read because it's too dark, but I can see with my human eyes it's drawing 89 watts and, lighting things up here pretty well. Now the icon up here does indicate it is still charging the battery. There's a little lightning bolt in the center there, and the green bars are moving up. So it has a power with the lightning bolt indicator and a charging indicator with the green moving up. It I cannot find anywhere like a battery percentage indicator. The instant I pulled the plug, it dropped down to regular mode. Now there is, in that circle, there's a single white line at the bottom, so it may be if I charge this guy up, we'll get like 3 or 4 lines inside that circle, and that'll be the battery indicator. Alright, plug this guy in, we're going to charge it up. We'll see how much power it takes to charge up from the factory. Alright, so this guy has the last bar at the top is the only one flashing, so I think it's charging in that 75 to 100% range. The draw has gone down. It used to be, a lot more watts. Now it's like 30 watts. So far, 54 watt hours have gone in. Alright, it took 61 watt hours to fully charge this guy up as it came out of the box with me playing with it a little bit. So even after it's fully charged, this guy does seem to take 1 to 2 watts just to kind of maintain its operations. So this USB-C port is bidirectional. I've plugged my phone in, it's charging rapidly via power delivery, so there's a little plug icon here indicating that power is going out. And the power export continues working even when the light's running. So I played around with the intensity curves in the hope that I wouldn't have to spin this knob quite as much to get the light to go up and down. But no, you have to spin the knob as much to get from 0 to 100. But the light changes in a different pattern. So, it does take a bit of time spinning around to get the light to turn all the way off. If you want it to turn off, I found it's easier to just hold the power button and actually turn the light off if you don't want light, and then turn it back on, which does require you flip this thing up, but that's faster than swiping it down to the 0 point. Overall, I've been pretty happy with this light. The fact that you need power input to do the 80 watt boost mode is visible in the instructions and the listing, but it's not clearly visible. So it kind of gives the impression that you have an 80 watt light that's battery powered, and you really don't. You have a 65 watt light or a 45 watt light that's operating on battery. It does seem to have about a 72 watt hour battery like they claim. I charged up at least 61 watt hours, from a single bar on the battery indicator. The menu is pretty simplistic and also pretty easy to use. There's basically 3 modes plus kind of like a settings area. There's not very many settings to deal with. If you have other Neewer lights, you can flip it to 2.4G, put them all on the same channel, and then any light that you control will control everybody on that same channel. Or you can use their Infinity app to do scenes and things with a set of lights. The app worked fine. Only thing I would really use it for is intensity and color temperature remotely. It's a light. It's not super complicated. The user interface is circular based, and they have a lot of circles, and the little fan blades are kind of the power level. The fan does its own thing. It only really comes on if the light's on for quite a while and gets hot. So if you just turn it on for a little while, the fan doesn't go at all, even at this is the 65 watt level. So basically the fan does its own thing, and this fan blade icon is really just changing between the different power modes. 45 watt and 65 watt. And if I put a power delivery input, you get 100 watt. The price seems reasonable. I would have liked them to have included a 100 watt USB-C power delivery adapter. They included a cable, but not the actual power supply at that price point. But other than that, I think it's a pretty reasonable offering at the price point. Build quality is pretty nice. I don't have any real complaints about the build quality. I'm really interested in using other accessories with that attachment point there. So I'm overall pretty happy with the light. I think pretty much the only real complaint you can have about it is the cost. So your cost comparing to other lights, that might make a purchasing decision. But as a light, it functions very well.